In retrospect, when I look back, I'm like, yeah, this is really wild. And what's up, y'all? And welcome to a very special episode of For All Nerds. It's your boy, DJ BenHaMeen, a.k.a. Jedi Master De La Soul, Handolo, Kylo Bent, Chewbacca Khan, Lando Californication, the Riz Skywalker, here in the spaceship. And I'm joined by a very special guest tonight.
What's going on? It's Mellow Brown, aka Brown Recluse, because I've been away for a while. But yeah.
Yeah, that you have, but you are back. Welcome back, Mellow Brown, not Mellow Marketer anymore, just Mellow Brown.
Mellow Brown it is.
Mellow Brown it is. Longtime fans of the show know my brother Mellow. You know, I mean, you might know us from a little book, Jimi Hendrix Purple Haze, in stores now. You better get a copy before it's sold out completely. But tonight, we are not here to talk about that. Tonight, we are here to give you the reasons why you should be watching Andor. If you have not seen it on Disney Plus, season 2 is dropping April 22nd. And we are here to prepare you by that, you know, just to talk a little about season 1 and, you know, some of the reasons why we think it's just one of the best shows ever. Lately, Mellow, I've been, The Wire to me is usually my standard. You know, when I talk about great television shows, it's like The Wire. I always throw Lost in there, of course.
Of course.
You know, Watchmen, you know, is one of my faves.
Mm-hmm.
Classic. Yeah, I never rewatched it. You know, I watched it enough, you know, during it, but I didn't rewatch it to see how it holds up. Lovecraft Country.
It's spotty when you go back.
I wouldn't doubt it. And that's what I mean. Things like The Wire, you know, I've watched multiple times. Most of Lost, I've seen multiple times. And now Andor. I just finished rewatching season 1. I did not watch season 1 since season 1 came out, I think. I watched most of that like twice when it came out. But since then, I had not watched it. And just like last week, I finished my rewatch of season 1, and I was blown away. Every moment that F'd me up the first time I watched it, F'd me up the second time I watched it. It's just a tremendous piece of work. And it made me really think, like, if they stick the landing with this, with season 2, I'm really going to have to start putting them in there, you know, in that category of, when you talk about, is it as good as Andor, basically.
Mm-hmm. It definitely puts me in a place where it's like I have been chasing the Andor high. And I will say that I have had like 2 shows that have kind of like met me where I am in regards to that feeling. But at the same time, when I go back and watch Andor, I'm like, no, that's not the case. There's nothing specifically like it. Mm-hmm. And I think this will be the last of its kind as well, which is kind of like the wild thing about it. Like, it's so much in its own realm as to how it works, especially because when's the last time we had a show that was just like full leftist? We have a lot of TV show, and a lot of people can argue that like a lot of television has been more on like the more progressive side.
Mm-hmm.
But Andor is something that is left. It is definitely like this is a TV show about the moment, about all these little microaggressions and all the things that are happening in your life, and all of the totalitarianism and the authoritarianism that is like just shadowing over you. And when it triggers you to throw a brick through a cop car, and it's bottling that up. I mean, I haven't been here for a while. I don't know what I can or cannot condone, but I will say that it is taking the point of view of someone where it's like, you know, someone who has felt like this, you know, whether it be yourself, someone that is like your neighbor, someone that you've seen get picked up for just walking down the street for no reason, for someone who is experiencing the worst level of misogyny that turns into attacks, just different things that can happen to them as a person. And what will be the day when they start to push back? And it's doing this to you, the viewer, in the process, where it's just like, have you started asking yourself this? And I don't know another TV show that's willing to do that. That's such a dangerous thing to do. And the fact that we even have it on television, let alone Disney Plus, is really wild.
It really is. Now, what were the other two shows you said that almost gave you the feeling?
Um, I would say Severance.
Yep.
Severance season 2
Mm-hmm.
is like a work of art. I think it's also one of those things where it's like it has the advantage of who would have guessed that Ben Stiller may be one of the best directors of television history,
Mm.
and I wouldn't doubt that probably stretches the film. I
Mm-hmm.
saw the finale at a screening at the WGA, and that is the best looking thing I've seen on the screen in like the past 3 to 4 years. And like I
Mm.
saw Dune 2 there too. So it just blew that out of the water.
Wow.
It's insane how good of a director he is.
Mm.
And then
He directed the finale. He directed all
yes,
the episodes.
he directed most of them.
Yeah.
He had two other ladies come in for specific episodes, but
Yeah,
it's
because
not
I
a
know the
Severance
woman
podcast.
directed what do you call it, the memory episode.
Yeah, yeah.
Yep.
And
And
then
the dude who created never gets any burn, like he never gets any mention. So I wish I knew his name to actually do it. But
I know there's a he's been on like the press tour,
mm-hmm.
and I know that there was a lot going on behind the scenes there, which was involved with they have multiple showrunners at a point, but I don't want to get
Mm-hmm.
into that. I don't know
Yep.
the details. I just love the show.
Yeah, it
So
worked out. What's the other one?
uh, the other one has actually just been the believe it or not, it was just the finale to Attack on Titan. I know it's like real
Mm.
controversial and all that as to where it went, but in terms of like writing, storytelling, acting, the art, and the fact that the animation studio actually went up against the creator and they call him out on it in the finale to say something insulting because to kind of go against sort of his more um like banal right wing point of view, which will come up here.
Mm.
To so that way they pose it to say something else. I thought it was incredible. It was one of those things where I was just like, I don't think I'll see anything else like Attack on Titan for the rest of my life.
Mm.
I think that is it'll only be this thing, especially because it definitely combined like this show where it's just like these teenagers are fighting giants that eat people, and so it's kind of The Walking Dead. But what if you combine The Walking Dead with Game of Thrones, and then what if you combine Game of Thrones with Andor, and then what if you combined Andor with something that is completely unique into itself, which is basically like a Flesh Gundam show, which Andor and Gundam are kind of the same thing, but we'll get into
All right. Yeah. That's
it.
we just are like, these are two other shows you need to see as well. But again, we were talking about Andor, and one thing I did say is that it's, ranking to me um close to or above The Wire, and you were saying that you would put it above The Wire.
I do. I put it as my number one. I
Wow.
will say before anything else, I do have a bit of a bias. A lot of things that these characters have experienced are things I've experienced as a black man that's had a lot of very intense experiences within America.
Mm-mm. Yeah.
Um, so I want to just throw that out there as well. And I know you've experienced them too. So those things quite intimately.
Quite.
uh,
Um.
but I think in terms of like the quality of it, with the Wire is it also has that kind of style where you're weaving in and out of these various different stories that are all discussing like the infrastructure that all these characters are trapped in.
Mm-hmm.
And what I like about Andor and what it appeals to me about it, and the reason why I think it's a little bit of a better show, is that it is aggressively showing you it's doing the extra work in a sense. The where The Wire is in a sense is a depressing show where even by the end of the show, it's just like it's a cycle. You're never going to escape it.
Yep.
This is how we're going to view this world from here on out. Congratulations, you watch the first episode to watch the first episode again. And that's kind of the
Mm-hmm.
moral of it. And Andor is a show about like even the villains are trying to rip themselves out of it
Mm.
to create something new, to be something completely different. And there are all these characters kind of stretching to these new extremes to find out who they want to be ultimately, and figure out what exactly is the path for them, because they refuse to believe that what they currently exist in is inevitable. And so I think those two shows, since they are kind of like polar opposite to each other, they kind of go together really well in a conversation as well.
Mm. No, and I think that was a great point, because that's one thing we haven't really discussed yet, even though we're like 10 minutes in, is how much or what Andor actually is about. And, for anyone who hasn't seen the show, Andor is basically a prequel to Rogue One, but that really doesn't explain it. Maybe you haven't seen what Rogue One is about. So Andor is really the story of Cassian Andor, a character who appeared first in the film Rogue One. And it's beyond just the story of Cassian. It's really the story of how the rebellion comes along in Star Wars, like how it's first incepted, all the things that go into making a rebellion, and what it does to both sides. Like, it's about, what it means to exist in a rebellion when you're fighting against fascism, and what it means to exist in a fascist state, whether you're on the side of the fascist or against them, and how it, drains both sides. And it's something that I talk about a lot on Four Nerds, is how, like, we live in this toxic white supremacist system, and it affects everyone, whether you're white, black, it doesn't matter, gay, straight, it affects us all, no matter where you lie on the spectrum, unless you're one of the, very few exclusively rich, and you're not listening to the show right now if you are. So, you ain't got to worry about it. Basically, it affects you. If you're listening to this show right now, it affects you in a negative way, whether you know it or not. And you might think that you're benefiting it. You might be a white man who's like, well, fuck it, I'm doing this and that. But in the end,
I mean, I don't know. Rich people have listened to the show before, then they gave
true
us
indeed.
jobs in LA.
This is true, but yeah, I'm talking. I mean, even those. Yeah, I'm talking the ultra rich. You know what I mean? Them dudes is like rich, but I'm talking like the rich, rich.
I got you.
Yeah, I'm talking basically the empire rich. That's what I'm
Then they
talking
turned
about.
it off. Whatever I said, what I was saying earlier.
Yeah, they turned it. I mean, look, dog, they turned this show off like when I first started this show is when they turned it off. They're like, yeah, not for me. Yeah, not this guy. But anyway, so yeah, Andor is basically telling the story of how Cassian gets involved in the rebellion. The rebellion that you all know from Luke Skywalker, etc., and the rebels and all that, and how it comes about. And it features a lot of characters that you might have seen in other Star Wars properties along the years. And like Mellow is saying, it tells this, it's really a character study of all these different characters, and it's following all these characters along as they're going through this story. And it's just an incredible tapestry of art. It's hard to describe because there's so much greatness in it. I don't think there's one weakness of the show. The directing, the acting, the set design, the casting, everything that goes into it. Like Mello was saying, there's a arc in the first season that takes place in prison. And myself having been incarcerated, I've never seen anything as there's a lot of prison media that we absorb, especially as Americans. Like, prison is featured over and over again in all kind of things where you would not expect it. And we're so desensitized to it that we just accept it. Like, movies that make prison jokes, people go to prison in random movies that you're like, why is there a prison scene in this movie? But that's just how much prison is used, because again, it's propaganda and it's desensitizing us to the fact that we live in a prison state. So Andor takes the opposite approach, because as someone who's been incarcerated, I've never seen anything in my life that really gives you the feeling of what it means to be incarcerated, and how incarceration is such a dehumanizing process, how it turns you into a robot, and how it will just drain all hope from you. And hope is such an intrinsic part of our human existence. So I mean, watching that again, watching it the first time was devastating for me, and watching it again was just as devastating. But then, like what Mello said, and I think that's my thing about why I love Andor so much, is because it offers that hope. It never ever shies away from the fact that no, all this is wrong. Like, and not only is it wrong, it's difficult to maintain. It takes constant work to put people under pressure. Like, freedom is, part of our life. It's something that we are given by God, and to have it taken away is an evil act. And so I just love that it always shows no, there's a light at the end of the tunnel. It's going to be a long, hard fight, but that light is there. And like Mello said, I've just never seen anything like this. I don't know what I can compare it to most times because I don't know any other thing like this other than like the film Athena, which I think is one of those great films
Mm-hmm.
about revolution,
Mm-hmm.
but it's just rare. There's films like Blue Giant, you know, which inspire you to live.
Yeah.
And that's a point that Andor makes too, that you have to live, you know, in order to fight, you have to be able to live and live your life. But like I said, I've just never seen anything like Andor.
It's incredible because like I never see it in American fiction.
Mm-hmm.
And so one thing that is very common within like our TV shows and our movies is that we're always going to have a level of bravado, no matter how much fun or how serious the franchise you have or anything like
Mm-hmm.
that. It could be as more serious as like a Born Identity movies, which they take themselves incredibly serious. I don't think I ever
Mm-hmm.
seen that character even crack a smile, but there is a level of bravado that is still involved with that, where there's like this invulnerability
Mm-hmm.
about the character, and it completely removes that from Andor. Every fight is a claw to the death. It's a level of desperation. It's like when you've actually experienced a fight physically in real life,
Mm-hmm.
you know that it's not a dance. There's no like block, block, punch, block, block. And it's like, oh, I didn't know you were going to do that. Well, none of that is in here.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, I shot you before you could get the rest of that sentence out. And I'm shaking afterwards. And it's such a brutal feeling that it has because it reminds you constantly within this series. And the reason why it adds better texture to Star Wars is that everything costs something.
Mm-hmm.
Everything is going to be like, if even your victories cost something, it's just like we scraped it out, but I lost three of my best friends because there was no other choice. The enemy is bigger than us. We just had to rush them from the one corner that was their blind spot. And so I lost a bunch of friends and we made it out of it. And so the next fight has to be worth it. And then the fight after that has to be worth it. And I'm so tired, but I can't allow them to win. Like we have to keep going. And like it and it's doing that, and it adds that level of like when you are watching the original trilogy with like Luke and Leia and Han, and which is from the point of view of like a child story. It's
Mm-hmm.
it's the sword and the stone with Luke. It's the lightsaber
Yep.
swinging it around. I'm the special boy. There's no special boy in this. It's
Mm-hmm.
everyone else around him that takes it seriously because they're just like, if I don't win this, I lose my rights.
I
It's
lose my
everything.
life.
Yeah, I lose like my family, every like everyone in my life will no longer be considered like a a living being worth being alive, so to speak. And like it's incredible that that texture is there now for every single character that's on the screen.
Mm. And now another thing I wanted to talk about with the characters, especially with Cassian, because as I've been thinking about it, I wanted to, you know, to break it down simply to people. I would say that he is like Tony Stark, of at least the MCU version that we all know and love. The Tony Stark from that version is like Cassian, because both of them are not even reluctant heroes. Both of them, when you meet them, are assholes and people you aren't supposed to like that much. Like Cassian is out for himself. He is ruthless. He will, you know, he kills people in cold blood in the very first scene that you meet him in. Tony Stark is a military contractor. You know, he's like F that peace sign when you meet him. None of that. You know, he's over there blowing bombs up left and right, killing people by the thousands. And it takes him, you know, the full arc of the Infinity Saga to turn it around. They're also both mechanics. They both get lost in space. There's a lot of things with them. But you said that he's more like Matt Murdock.
To
And
me, he is more Matt Murdock. Yeah, definitely.
I can see that too with the reluctant hero that they turned Matt into in the Netflix series or in the Disney Plus series, especially. But
yo, what's up, fam? It is I, Tatiana King, and I want y'all to know that I need you to do me a favor. Please share this show. You're listening to us, you're watching us, but you're gatekeeping. And I don't understand why you're doing that. I really need you to share with your friends, share with your mama, share with your cousin, share with everybody, because if you're like me, you love to share the joy, and it's really important that you do that. So please tell people about For All Nerds. I love you.
Why do you think that he's like Matt Murdock?
I think so we all know the different abilities that we have our Star Wars characters as, where you have like Han Solo is sort of the guy who is just kind of always able to find like that one probability that can get him out of a situation, never telling the odds. He can scrape himself out. Leia is a military genius, in all honesty. She's kind of like the best person for that. And Lando is the guy who can smooth talk his way in and out of every situation. With Andor, his ability is kind of like a mixture of those things, but it's concatenated in one specific way where it's just like he can read anyone in any situation as to how it is and what's going to happen next. He is incredibly empathetic, and a lot of that is coming from like his life is just being like this immigrant that's kind of had to hide in the shadows. I love his accent because he's the only one with it. And it never changes. And one thing that's also incredibly special about that is that something I used to always hear from my dad is that like if you live somewhere for so long and you still got that accent from where you came from, you haven't been home in a long time. And like that means he's like never fully adapted. That means he's never acquired a taste for where he lives. And so he's always kind of coming from this perspective of an outsider. And that means he's a man of two worlds. He's like, I don't belong here, but I can fit in anywhere. And because of this, he can kind of read every situation. And it is incredibly fun to watch a character who is always kind of ahead of the room because of that. Not because he's like some super smart genius, but because he's someone who is always kind of like got his finger on the pulse. He is the metronome of the room. And I think that leans more towards Matt Murdock to me, where like he can end up in bed with anybody. He can get a villain to kind of end up switching if he wants to, while at the same time, everyone's kind of like, I want to have a drink with you. You're the character that I would like to have a drink with in the Marvel Universe more than any other character in the Marvel Universe, to be honest. While at the same time, you can quickly realize like, oh, he's really dangerous. He is quite dangerous. And he will make sure that the outcome of this works in his favor at the end of the day, no matter how heroic you think he is. It may be a level of altruism in there, but he will turn on you if it's necessary.
Again, I think, well, and that's the thing. On For All Nerds, we've said that Matt Murdock is the Tony Stark of the street level MCU now, where it's like everything revolves around him. And a lot of those characteristics that you just named, I feel like Tony Stark is the same, because I'd have a drink with Matt, but I would damn sure have a drink with Tony. I know that shit would be lit, dog. Like
I would never have a drink with Tony.
Oh, I'd have multiple. It'd be a party. I gotta do it at least once. At least once.
Can Tony even drink?
I mean, he gets faded in the early movies. He is out of his mind faded in Iron Man 2. That's when I meet him, right when Iron Man 2.
That's how you get blown up.
Yeah, I mean, pretty much, that's the other problem. But I was talking about that with Rodimus, and he's like, the MCU is like one of the, well, no, he said Star Wars is like the worst universe to live in if you're a normal dude.
Yes.
But if you're living in New York, the MCU is right up there with it. Like it's a terrible place to be. Something else you touched on real quick I want to talk about is that this is also an immigrant story. And I think that's like really special right now. I mean, obviously we know what's going on, but personally, I've seen such pushback against immigrants from people of color recently, especially from Black men. And it just bugs me out. Actually, from men and just from people of color in general. I've seen it in general. Like, It's been bad lately. And like you said, to have Diego Luna have his accent in full display throughout the series, and for his character Cassian to be an immigrant, and for the people he surrounds himself with to be immigrants, and just for him to represent that side of Star Wars, and for us to see that side of Star Wars, and done so well. It's just like all the minute details, and that's why this is one of those shows, y'all, when you watch, you have to pay attention because it's from the jump. Like I remember the first time I started the series, I was like, I don't know. And Mellow was like, you're bugging. This show it's better than it has any right to be. I'll never forget when you said that. And it's so true because on the very first episode, if you're watching the very first episode of the first season, when we see Cassian's origin story when he's young and on the planet that he comes from, all of the children there with him, they speak in their native language and there's no subtitles. And that type of jump of like, you have to stick with this is so daring and so bold. And then they reward you for it because you understand everything about the situation if you pay attention. You don't need subtitles. You understand their conversation. You understand their circumstances. You understand what got them there and why it's like that, why there are only just children there. And then, you understand what goes on from that. And then, like I tell everyone, if you stick with the first 3 episodes of the first season, like if it doesn't get you in the first episode, I fully understand. Just stick with it to the end of the 3rd episode. If you're not damn near wanting to jump out your seat at the end of that 3rd episode, then I get it. This show might not be for you. But I really don't understand anyone with a heart who can watch those first 3 episodes and get to the end of that 3rd episode and not be like, what the hell am I watching? I must keep going.
I'll even add to that where so when it first aired, it was like 2022 and I was working at ABC on a show and it was like a few weeks after my episode had dropped. ABC was just like, we're taking a pause so we could give our show a bit of a break, so that way we could catch up on our episodes and we could get more scripts out and we could start filming a little bit more before we went back into the next rotation after the holidays. So ABC did something unprecedented, which is that they showed all 3 episodes of Andor back to back. They took it off of Disney Plus and they put it on ABC because that was their way of saying like, hey, everyone, we want you to be aware that we just made a masterpiece. Like, this is the best thing that we've ever made. For someone who has worked that deeply inside of ABC, let me tell you, that is one of the most extremely unusual, hard, and rare things to do to get them to air something that is not usually within their demographic base, that is not even on their network, and to play it there and just be like, just watch it and understand, and you're going to feel all the things. Because that first 3 episodes is like, if you were to take the pilots of once again The Wire, because The Wire is heavily within those first 3 episodes, especially when you get to episode 3. If you were to take The Americans and you were to take some of that like classic dialogue, which this show shares a lot of DNA and a lot of writers from that show. And if you were to take something that was like, if you ever wanted to see a live action Gundam, in terms of like how those characters work, their politics, their reasons for doing it and all that, and it pushes those things together within the Star Wars universe to make the Star Wars universe 10 times what it is. I have loved the Star Wars universe growing up, and if Andor would have existed during that, I would be Star Wars obsessive like I see other people are, because like it made everything tangible. It makes everything feel like something. Now when I see like an X-Wing, something new lights up inside me because of like I'm thinking about like the person who's inside of there taking a risk. And like, that's insane that it's a show that can do that to you.
That it can recontextualize things.
Yes.
And and it's like, it's right up there with like how Rebels did that for me the first time I saw Rebels and Clone Wars, because I thought the prequels were, whatever. I understood as I watched, as years passed, I understood the ideas that Lucas was trying to get across, because a lot of the stuff that he was trying to get across is stuff that Andor just, executes. And he just had the ideas. But when I saw Clone Wars and Rebels, there's a lot of, whatever in those series. But when they are good, they are great. And they are great at making you understand what was going on during the Clone Wars and why the Clone Wars were so serious. And characters like Dooku, Anakin, everyone pretty much I have a greater and deeper love for because of those series. And this is just, like you said, it's recontextualizing, especially A New Hope, Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi, just everything that went into the rebellion you're seeing it, and then there's just so much to this show because we talk about people like Cassian, but then another one of my favorite characters is Mon Mothma. Mon Mothma. And Mon is a senator that we, seen before in the background of the Star Wars universe, a lot of extended universe stuff. But for them to make me care about her relationship with her husband and daughter so much and what is going to happen to them, like we have this whole family drama in the middle of all this stuff. And then you have characters like Cyril, the fascist, and his family drama. And it's like all this different stuff is going on within this show while we are watching a rebellion being built. We're seeing characters make decisions that, they will have to live with for the rest of their, however long they live. Like another one is Luthen, who I just think Skarsgård, that's Stellan, right? That's the father.
Yeah.
Yeah. Stellan Skarsgård is like, I can't say the level of acting the man is doing on this show. It's like he waited his whole life for this role is how I feel. Because he has
it wasn't Thor 2, it was this.
It definitely wasn't Thor 2. Damn sure wasn't Thor 2. But no, like, I mean, the man is just doing some of the greatest acting I've ever seen in my life on this show. And his speech, where he describes what he's lost in service of this rebellion, is just one of the greatest bits of writing that I've ever seen. And then one of the greatest bits of acting. And it just also, that's, I mean, this show lays out so many things about rebellion. And like you said, it makes you want to allegedly throw a brick through a cop car. But it constantly gives you that feeling of, okay, what am I doing with my life? What is my purpose? What do I really want to do? What is my legacy? Am I going to slowly die or am I going to fight to live? It's like it asks of you important and unbelievable questions. And yeah,
it's to touch on all of the characters you just named too. A major theme of the entire series for characters that aren't Cassian, and the reason why it's important to have so many characters, and especially Luthen in that regards, is that a big theme is that it's the death of complicity. You no longer have that luxury. You are fully fallen into fascism, and we're all like, anyone that can open up the news on any app within your phone right now, you're questioning, like, how much am I complicit? And that's even people who are even right wing. There's just like, how much am I complicit to what is happening to just everyone around me right now? Like, and those little moments where you start to push back. Luthen is a character where you discover that he is probably the most important character in the Star Wars universe. Everything is leaning on his own humanity being destroyed to basically build a rebellion that is built on the back of him making terrorist cell plots. And like, it's a slow inch. It's like little things where it's just like, we have to blow up this building that belongs to the Empire, which is a federal government establishment, just so that way we could get people to feel something. And then from there, we're going to be able to see who actually is like cheering for us. And now we got to recruit them. And we just have to keep doing little bits of that. But every time I do it, I can no longer sleep in a bed. I can't have a decent meal without looking over my shoulder. I see ghosts in my sleep. I'm sacrificing bits and pieces of myself, and eventually what's going to happen to me. And I don't see that dude in more movies within the Star Wars universe. So who knows? While at the same time, we have Mon Mothma. Mon Mothma is a character you can look at where, if you are, and I'm not just going to say this like this is something that's like exclusive to white people. I'm going to say it's reaches out to everybody, where it's like, if you have conservative members of your family and you are looking for those tiny little microaggressions as to you are in danger, the Mon Mothma story is going to be devastating for you. Because the thing that's so interesting about that is, like, her husband is considered the most likable, charming, and funny dude within their nice suburban political area that they exist in, where luxury is constantly brought to them. They've never had to want for anything. Every meal just appears in front of them without asking for it. But at the same time, he's the kind of guy who's just like, I just want everybody happy. I just want everybody having a good time. But he is complicit and is never looking at what were the conditions in which that meal was brought to you. How much, how many people died to get the diamonds that are around your neck, and why are you cosplaying as a Jedi? Which is the best love. It is the greatest environmental storytelling I have seen on anything. Any franchise.
I've been meaning to Google and see if Gilroy and the other creators have talked about that, because that was my assumption, is that my man is a Williamsburg dude who is like, oh look, I'm doing Jedi now. Like, this is what those Jedi used to wear, But it's like Jedi couture, he's not like the Gucci Jedi robes, what I mean? My man ain't got no cheap desert shit. Nah, it's fly Jedi shit.
He's got the native headrest with the diamonds on it when he's going to Coachella. And he's 100% that guy. And because there is nothing else to hang on him. There's no other identity around him that's actually worth looking at. And he just knows that, like, in his head, oh, Jedi are cool, therefore I will dress like them. Which is also kind of like a funny meta nod to people who have probably watched Star Wars and not realized what the message is of the franchise. And then what do you do when you have like a daughter that is like slowly falling into like a level of conservatism, or that is like highly religious and exclusionary to any other belief outside of the things that she needs told to her, but she's finding comfort in that. She's finding safety in that. But because you are willing to get a little bit dirty, it's just like, you're not the cool parent. You're like the weird, dangerous one, and you're telling me I don't want that. I want to be like the happy one over there, dressed like a fucking clown and a jester that everyone likes. Like that seems like a better life. And how do you live like that every day? The Mon Mothma story is incredible. Especially knowing where that character goes.
No, look, we talked about it enough. It is absolutely one of the most incredible series that I've ever seen. And like Mellow said, I'm one of those people I'm not a Star Wars obsessive, but Star Wars pretty much defined my life. Like, the very first film I saw, my older sister tells the story all the time, that I was a child who had nothing to say. And then they took me to see Star Wars, and I was a toddler, and I came out and I would not shut the fuck up. And I fully believe her, because all of my earliest memories in life revolve around Star Wars. It was reason why I wanted to become a filmmaker. George Lucas was my god. I just obsessed over it. I live, by Yoda's words, on and on and on. And I'd still never seen anything like Andor in my life. There is just, I cannot compare it to any other Star Wars property other than that it elevates them all and it makes them all better in retrospect. And like Gilroy, the creator, the showrunner, everything said, he said, no disrespect to anyone who's done this before as far as Star Wars, but we took this shit seriously from day one. And that just, to me, is the 100% truth of it. And it feels like how, when me and Mellow wrote Jimi Hendrix Purple Haze, quick shout out, we took that shit seriously. And
I'm not going to compare us to Andor.
hey, look, I ain't read many books like it. You know what I mean? I'm going to say that, there ain't many comics out there that are, talking that talk.
Yeah, that's in that book. A lot of stuff.
Yeah, there's a lot of things, in retrospect, when I look back, I'm like, yeah, these niggas is really wilding. So, yeah, but that's what I mean. We took it seriously, and no, I don't compare shit to Andor. Andor is one of those things that I aspire, to be like. That is how, anything I create now is definitely inspired by Andor, and I aspire to make the same type of thing. Most of my stuff is always like that. I'm always talking revolution. I'm always talking live your life. I'm always talking, freedom. But this made me more so where I can't write anything that doesn't involve this, because what's the point? We're
Yeah.
living under insanity. So it's like you have to have art that challenges that.
And I want to say this as my closing comments,
Mm-hmm.
and almost make this like a trailer for the whole thing, which is if you are looking for the most intense, the most thrilling, the most emotional, and the most like just grab you by the collar and make you want to jump out of your seat because you're so happy or you're so mad and you want to feel something. And that's the reason why we watch things. You are supposed to be feeling something at all times. Then you need to be watching this. If you're jumping into it and you're in like episode 1 or 2 or anything like that, and you're like, this is kind of slow, it's because you're watching someone that is working in an orchestra right now. There's a crescendo. And when the highs are high, you won't feel anything else like it. I'm talking about it from a perspective of like there's cinematic achievements happening in this, in both the look, the sound, and the acting that is well beyond what is normal on television, let alone film. Film, there aren't movies I've seen within the past 5 years that have hit the highs that Andor can hit within like the last episodes of each of his parts.
Yeah.
It's all something where it's just like it's taking this bubbling feeling, that feeling that you won't talk about, that you feeling every time you open up an article in the news, and it's escalating it to its highest point, to the point where you're just like, I'm losing it right now. Like I'm sweating like I'm on amphetamines. I'm just watching Andor. Why am I feeling like this? And like it is what cinema is supposed to do to you. And I am jealous if you haven't seen it before, because I wish I could live all these experiences for the first time all over again.
Yeah. And even like as my closing, even on my second watch, it felt like I was living those experiences for the first time because I got to watch it with someone who hadn't seen it. And so they were just bugging out. And it was just so great to see the effect that it has as it just, it was slow. And they're like, oh, okay. And then I told them by the third episode, it's going to have you. And at the end of the third episode, I was sitting there slapping my pillow, jumping out of the damn couch again. And they're sitting there like, okay, I get it. And then as it goes on, it just became more and more. And just like Mellow said, it's like there are all these experiences. There's the end of the third episode, the end of the sixth episode, the eye, and the whole eye arc is just such a beautiful arc and talks about so many things on so many levels. It's just like how I like Severance is another of those shows where even though we have all these things going on with the main characters, all of the black characters on Severance are being treated with such reverence and such like dignity and such blackness that it's shocking sometimes. And even that's done here because there's like a dark-skinned brother during the arc of the eye, and it's like implicit that they cast a dark-skinned brother for this role, for multiple reasons, and they don't avoid that without saying that. And there's just so many times that this show has done that, like how Diego Luna is who he is, and they don't have to say anything about it. They just cast him and let him be him.
Yes.
And yeah, man, I'm getting emotional just talking about it. Like Mello said, if you haven't seen it, it's all on Disney Plus. I think the first season is on Hulu right now, and the first 3 episodes I think are on YouTube. So there's multiple ways to see this. Man, rip that shit if you got to. Do what you got to do. Find it. You know what I mean? Like watch Andor, y'all.
Disney's trying to give you every way to watch it.
For real. Second season drops April 22nd. We'll be back to cover, every arc, much more. I know we'll both have a lot to say about, this second season. And oh man, I don't know what else I could say. Watch Andor. This is for all nerds. Mellow, please let the folks know where they can find you at, if you want to be found.
I don't want to be found, but you can find my work within Jimi Hendrix Purple Haze, which is available for purchase. There's Blade Runner Origins, Blade Runner 2039, and Blade Runner Tokyo Nexus. And shout out to everyone that's picked up that series because you got me a visa to Tokyo in the process of doing that. And there's going to be some more things on the way, but yeah, you can find my work out there, and I watch Station 19 on Hulu. There's some anime
Mhm.
coming up. Just I guess I'll be doing stuff sometimes.
Yeah, sometimes, a few things out there. So yeah, please make sure y'all support Andor. Make sure y'all support For All Nerds. You know how to do that in multiple ways. We're at patreon.com/For All Nerds. Hit that like and subscribe wherever you're at. If you're watching our beautiful melanated faces right now on YouTube, on Twitch, on all these different platforms, just hit those like and subscribe buttons. It means the world to us. You know what I mean? Growing these
Thank you so
platforms,
much.
everything. Yes, thank you. And of course, you can always head over to forallnerds.com and get you one of these Gucci Mandalorian. This is the sweatshirt, but you can get the t-shirt right for the spring, summer, the classic Gucci Mandalorian. We also got our Sith Happens joint dropping for May 4th. May the 4th be with you, and for Andor and for everything else. A few other designs over there. So forallnerds.com, get all your hot merch. And that's it. You can follow me at DJ BenHaMeen on all platforms. Hit up at For All Nerds as well. And yeah, like Mellow said, pick up Jimi Hendrix Purple Haze. Soon to be sold out of the first printing. Now, one cover I think is, so better get your hands on one soon. We'll be back very soon, April 21st, to talk about the first 3 episodes of Andor and a little bit more after that. Thank you.
Appreciate y'all.
Hey, what's up, internets and the fan fam? This is Tatiana King for All Nerds, and I want to thank you so much for listening and watching the All Nerds. Make sure you like and subscribe to us only on YouTube.
For All Nerds Show is a member of the Loudspeakers Network, where we always say rest in peace to our founder, Combat Jack.
For All Nerd Show is powered by our listeners. Everything we do, from our podcasts, live events, our website, are all independently funded. Please continue to support us through our Patreon page at patreon.com/forallnerds.